Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for joining me on this, my journey into the constraints-led approach for BJJ. My name is Sam Battlefields, and today we had a bigger class. I really am enjoying Fridays, although the time does get away from me. Part of the reason for this is I was using class as a bit of a comp prep for myself, particularly the standing portion. Even though we've been doing it live regularly for the past nearly 8 to 9 months now, I still think this is the one part of my game that needs the most work. Given that the class was a bit bigger today and a couple of people with less experience, I was going to use the start of the class to do a bit more actual takedown work. However, because of the experience level, I decided against it. We started off with the usual boxing tag. I am seeing much better outcomes, even from the fresher guys. Their stance is a lot more active, they're not so front on, and they are engaging in a quicker manner, which is awesome. The second standing game that we played was, again, chest to back, chest to thigh, and the guys were really good at cutting angles. It was great to see, and I actually figured out that that's something that I need to do a lot better than I am currently. I've been relying too heavily on not necessarily muscling, but using my physicality to be able to force people up or down, although I do think there is something that I'm doing really well with making a connection to the arm and then using that connection to be able to get a hold of a single leg and take down from there. I think I've been a bit too broad with our constraints for the games, and I really need to readjust, especially when there are these less experienced people in the class. When it's the guys that have had a year plus experience, then I feel like I can open the constraints up a little bit more. But when these new guys come in, I can see that they're struggling with some of the more broader and less constrained games. For example, in the guard game today, we were still looking to have an open supine guard, but this time, instead of having them outside of our frames, I wanted to have one leg inside the frames of our legs and then have to disengage the frames whichever way possible. Again, I think this was really good for the guys with 1+ years experience, because then they were able to self-organize around it. And even with the fresh guys, they were experimenting and exploring different ways. And one of those ways was to get their leg out the back and then try and attack via different angles, which was something that harkened back to that initial game, the standing game, where we started talking about angles and getting out to the side and then attacking from there. It was around this point that I did discuss segmentation, and segmentation works for when you're changing the angles as well. We then moved on to the control game. I realized by this stage that time had got away from me. I had been implementing a 2-minute round and then a roll swap and then a 2-minute round and then a partner swap and then a roll swap. And that alone, even with only a 30-second break in between, takes up a significant amount of time. And especially when we've got a focus of the week being control or side control, all of this is something that I really need to work on, to be honest. I think I've been a bit too blasé with my time management. I think I've been a bit too blasé with my new people management. Part of what I'm looking to do is get in touch with both of the new people and just ask them what their feedback is and if there's anything that I can help with or I can improve in my practice design. One of the things that I have thought about doing is having a backup game for the newbies that has maybe more constraints and more targeted objectives. For example, today's control game was an extension of the last couple of days where we were looking to keep the shoulders on the ground or the hips, and the goal was essentially to see what they felt was more important and organized around that. And the person on the bottom, their goal was to re-guard or, of course, sweep, etc. There was no submissions, but I did use the terminology, get their hips on the mat or their back on the mat, rather than sweep or reversal, as I believe that that's a better external cue. However, if I was to look at the practice design from the perspective of how can I get the beginner to get the most out of it, I would have constrained those games a little bit more in order to show particularly that the hips are the power center. I think one of the issues is that I played one of those games yesterday showing the importance and the strength of the hips, and then built on that today, even though about half the class wasn't there yesterday. There's a bit going on in my life at the moment. We are moving gyms. My work is going pretty hectic. There's a few things on in the back of my mind, but that's no excuse. I want to be the best coach I can be. There are certain things that I have taken out of my life that hopefully will assist me in doing this, and I'm getting more routine into my life again. So hopefully that helps. I'm also looking to be less confrontational online. because that does take a bit of energy mentally. And to be honest, that energy should be given to my students, given to my family, given to my work, not in that order. Also, I do have a little bit on my mind with the fact that I am competing this weekend. The good thing is there's not much expectation on my behalf because I am a fresh brown belt in the expert division where people have been black belts for years. In saying that, I am quietly confident that a lot of the stuff I've been doing is benefiting. So I'm looking forward to seeing how I go. I haven't seen the brackets yet. I haven't competed that often. If you'd like to know more, go to battlefieldsgrappling.com.au and fill in the form. Everyone else, like, comment, subscribe.